already a lawyer practicing in Milan, and I was assisting at the time most of the international clients investing into Italy and into Europe as well. So I decided to come to Hong Kong because it was a fantastic opportunity to me, and then I'm very happy that I did so. And now I've been here for 14 years, and I've been advising clients in their commercial arrangement in Hong Kong and in Greater China, as well. And I'm also assisting Asian clients in their expansions and in commercial operation back into Europe. So I'm actually dealing with the two flow investments, both outbound from Europe into Hong Kong and China, and outbound from China and Asia into Europe. So I'm here today to answer your questions and to give you like a very high level tip and comments on if you have any question about investing into Europe or what you should be aware of. I'm very happy to talk you through to this.
Well, thank you so much. And I just want to remind everybody who's here listening that you guys can also ask your own questions, whether it be through raising your hand or through the chat room. We really want to be able to answer your specific questions and concerns addressing this topic. So don't be shy. At any point, you guys can ask questions or type them in. And I'll get started with the questions we have prepared. So the first one is, based on your expertise, what do startups need to think or consider before they would expand to Europe? And specifically, Asian startups?
Okay, very good question, very interesting. It's very broad and general. I think that for Europe is a very good market, it's a very sophisticated market. A lot of excellent brands, and then a very high-tech company already based there. So if you are looking and seeking to invest into Europe, the first test that you need to make is whether you have a commercial case. So it depends on, obviously depends on which services are you looking to provide or which product are you going to sell. You need to be aware that once you do so, you must obviously have a commercial case, whether your product is going to be effectively at the level that the European market is expecting it to be. Because as I said before, European market is very sophisticated and the quality of the product is normally very high, and they expect a certain kind of product which may not be the same product that can work in the Asian market. So you need to assess this first general consideration. The other very important step that you need to take is whether you have like an adequate data protection system, because once you are marketing your services and your products to European customers, you will be subject to the data privacy regulation, which is valid and which is enforced in Europe. So if you will have a European customer, you will probably need to treat their personal data in accordance with the European law on data privacy. So you must have a proper system in place for the protection of personal data and for the storage. So you need to make yourself very acquainted with the data protection, the European data protection law. This is very important because if you do not comply with this, you may be subject to sanctions. Mm-hmm. So this is number two. Number three, you have to decide where you want to establish your operation. You may not have to necessarily need to establish a company or an entity in Europe, but you need to be aware that if you are carrying on business in Europe on a continuative basis, you may be subject to European tax. One of the European member state tax. So obviously, once you have expanded, when you have set up your company in one of the European member states, Europe is, the European Union system is based on the free circulation of person and of goods. So once you establish your business operation in one European member state, then you have free access to all the European market, which is a big advantage. Is a big advantage without other formalities. But as I said, you need to be aware of the local laws. So in a few words, once you have set up, once you have established that you are ready to enter the European market because you have your business case, your commercial case, the step number 2 is obviously seek the advice of professional consultant, which may accompany you in this journey and then advise on the better form of entity and other ancillary matter relating to your business. So these are very important steps. You need to do this before you start selling or advertising or promoting your goods or services in the European market.
Okay, and for someone who has zero experience and let's say a tight budget because they're still not yet ready to go into that European market, are there any resources, whether they be government information or government databases or public records, any resources that they can use to do their preliminary research on this due diligence, data privacy, and all of those different considerations?
Yes, actually online there's everything, right? So you can really start with a very preliminary basic research to see whether there is any hurdle that may affect your decision. So you... Are there
any resources off the top of your mind, like that you consider to be reliable, that people can trust?
But yeah, actually the European Union website has a lot of information in respect of data privacy law and also like general tax permanent establishment. If you are carrying out, if you're selling, if, for example, if you have like an agent or you have like a person that you pay or you are considering to pay on a day-to-day, on a month-to-month basis, which is effectively your employee, you need to be aware of also of the labor law. So I think pretty much there's a lot of websites where doing business in Europe, but obviously these are in general. Europe is still made of 27 members, so each country has its own law. So obviously there are like general European directive and regulation, but I think that if you want to expand in Europe, first of all, you would need to decide where ideally would be based your headquarter, or which kind of person, which kind of consumer are you targeting. And this is once you have established what country would be your landing point for your new operation, then you can custom made and tailor made your research a little bit in a more accurate manner. And obviously, if you're free to drop me an email after this seminar, this webinar, and I'm very happy to give you some like high-hand indication as to where to start from.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much. My next question is about the foreign direct screening regulation, and we talked about it briefly yesterday. But in a few words, for someone who has no idea what this is, can you summarize it and how it would affect people doing business in Asia, or Asians doing business in Europe?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, I want to make it clear that the European Union is very open to foreign direct investment, and this is a core value to growth, competitiveness, and employment and innovation, right? So EU wants to remain and will remain an attractive destination of foreign direct investment, because it's a very big market, it's a very diversified market, and they really value investors from overseas. But on the other side, EU openness needs to be balanced with screening tools. For example, they want to make sure that they are protecting like their strategic assets, strategic company. And this actually with COVID-19 has become a very, very important topic, because with COVID-19 emergency, there was an increased risk of attempts to take over healthcare capacity, for example, medical or protective equipment, research establishment, and so on. So the EU wants to make sure that vigilance is required to ensure that FDI do not negatively impact on the EU capacity to cover the health needs of its citizens. This is, the COVID-19 is a very good example, because all this pandemic obviously attract a lot of attention from investors, foreign investors from worldwide, to the EU very advanced healthcare and medical system and businesses. So to avoid that, the EU already before the pandemic set up this regulation to protect this core system. So basically, in a very few words, what is the EU trying to protect? Is trying to protect foreign direct, the foreign direct investment could affect negatively is security and is public order. Mm-hmm. These are the two main assets that the EU wants to protect. So if you are targeting an investment in a business, for example, you want to set up your own operation, or you want to set up your own, or you want to take over a company which is already established in the European Union, you need to make sure that your investment or your takeover is not affecting the security and public order of the European Union. So every European member state has got its internal screening power. So if there are some proposed or intended investment in a company based in one of the European member states, then every member state, or most of them actually, they have a screening powers, and then just basically trying and make sure that your investment is not putting at risk the economy of the country and of the European Union per se. So in fact, actually, the scope, the security of public order are not defined by the regulation, but there are factors that can be considered relevant. So, for example, investment relating to critical infrastructure, for example, communication, data processing or storage, critical technologies, robotics, nanotechnologies, access to control sensitive information for personal data, foreign investment where by ownership of structure of funding, which could control the economy in a very large scale of a country. So all these investments could be subject to screening prior to being authorized to go ahead. Mm-hmm. Other investment were affecting projects and programs financed by the European Union, involving substantial amount of European funding. These will also be affected by the screening. So again, if you think, obviously, if you are looking to offering services or selling goods, your investment will not be subject to screening. But whereby you have the suspects or you have the doubt that your investment or takeover of already established investment may affect the security or public order or could influence. For example, you're buying like a telecommunication company, then for sure your investment could be subject to screening, whereby your company can show that they meet all the requirements and all criteria for this investment to go ahead. This is in a very nutshell what is the screening regulation of the European Union is about.
And on a much more technical level, what does this screening process look like? So let's say a company is subject to screening. Well, what does that procedure look like? What is the government entity that would approach them, or how does that work for people who have no idea?
Well, there is a screening framework.
Mm-hmm.
There is a screening framework whereby, first of all, if you are setting up and this is actually to touch upon again on what I was talking at the beginning of this discussion. When you are deciding to set up your business in Europe, whether it's by a fresh greenfield investment or whether it's by way of a takeover of an existing business, you will obviously have already clear in which country, in which member state you will be landing. So this is very important because, as I said, this regulation does not per se provide the screening mechanism, because every single member state has got its own screening mechanism. So for example, if you decide to invest in Italy, Italy will have its own mechanism to screen foreign investment. So once you have located in which country you want to invest, and then assuming that you have your that your investment could affect the national security or public order because it is relating to one of the big sectors that we were discussing before, then you will need to become familiar with the screening mechanism in place in that specific country. So to answer your question, there isn't a screening framework for the European Union, but each member state has its own screening mechanism. And this is really depending which member state you are targeting.
And using Italy as an example, how long would this screening process take? And does this whole screening process affect your ability to do business? Would it pause your business, or how does that work? And we can use Italy as an example.
Now, the screening mechanism, using Italy as an example, could be resolved in a few weeks. Sometimes it really depends also on the area. If you're in Milan, which is very advanced, commercial and international city of Italy, is going to be a bit faster. If you're going into Rome or in the south, it could be a bit slower. But this is not actually the real problem, because normally the authority are quite responsive, and they respond in a very accurate manner. What is very important is, in fact, you're planning your business, you're entering into the market way in advance. So that, for example, if you are buying a company, you need to take into consideration like a due diligence process, which would take, it could take months, for example. So you need to time yourself in a way that you are ready to enter into the market in a structured way, so that you take into consideration all your acquisition time, which may require 6 months, sometimes even more than 1 year, and you do everything in parallel. So you start the screening mechanism and you start your acquisition process or your greenfield investment. Basically, there's a lot of prep activities that you would need to do before you start actually your commercial operation.
Okay, I see. And in your experience, how much time would you tell a client to estimate for that process?
Well, it depends what is the process. If you are starting a new operation, I think that you would, if it's like a greenfield investment whereby you are seeking to set up a new company, I take the example of Italy. That can be done in 1 month maximum, provided that all the documents are in order. At the same time, you start to make inquiries with your professional advisor as to whether your intending business should be or would be subject to a screening in that country, in Italy. Then I would say at least a few months in advance, you have already be very clear what is your timing in respect of when you actually to be ready to start to offer goods or services or carry out your business activities. This is pretty much like common sense as well. It's not only screening mechanism or timing to set up bureaucratic activities to commence your business.
Perfect. And we do have one question from
Sure.
one of our viewers, Joshua Lim, and he's asking, what sectors would European companies be interested to expand in Southeast Asia? So this is more the other way around.
The other way around. Oh, yes. Basically, what sector in Southeast Asia? Obviously, Southeast Asia is a big market with billions of consumers. So I would say consumer goods that are high-end would be very attractive with a very good quality, which the Asian consumer are very attentive to, would be a good sector for a European company to invest. Obviously, technology, infrastructure, whereby like markets, very big markets, especially in Southeast Asia, like are considered a little bit less advanced. There's a lot of room, a lot of space for the very high-end technology of European businesses to expand into Southeast Asia. So I would say like anything which is a very good quality, both on the side of consumer goods products and technology-related businesses. They have a very good chance to be successful in Asia and particularly in Southeast Asia.
And then asking the same question, but the other way around, what industries have you noticed have been trending as far as foreign direct investment of Asian companies in Europe?
Okay, the trend actually is in a way that most of the time I have quite long experience in assisting Chinese clients investing into Europe. What they're looking for is very high-end, again, because Europe, as I said, is a very sophisticated market, both in the way of supply and demand. So the supplier at already a very good level and quality, the workforce, the expertise of employees is very high. So the products is also very high, and the consumer expects the product they are buying to be of a very good quality. So the Chinese companies and also some other Southeast Asia company, they are aware of this. So what they do, they're more looking to invest in Europe with the aim to bring back the technology into Asia, and then raise the level of the Asian companies and Asian business and the Asian market generally. Because they're already aware that the European market is already, I'm not saying saturated, but the technology that they have in Europe is pretty much difficult to match for newly company established in Asia. In China, even though is the technology in China and in Asia is improving dramatically, and is becoming better and better, and of a very, very good quality as well. They could compete if they have a level of technology which is similar to the European one. They can compete on price, offering the same product at a lower price. But equally, if they looking to bring back the technology and the expertise and the design also of and the patents of European companies back to this huge Asian market. The Asian market is, if you consider India, it's got like billions of consumers, so it's a huge market. So either you bring the very good products from Europe back into this market, and you can do so by looking to acquire a lot of company who can offer a very good degree of technology back in Europe. Also bearing in mind that there's a lot of liquidity in terms of capital here in Asia, and there are a lot of good, very good companies in Europe that are looking to attract investors from Asia to do joint ventures for both the market. There's a number of different ways that you can do this. As long as you have either the capital or the technology or the products which is very popular, you can be very successful if you consider the combined markets, Asia and Europe together as a whole. Then you have a lot of room to become very successful and take the most out of the two markets.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of investment, and specifically Asian investment in Europe, I've found in my experience that unless you're working or looking to invest in some very specific industries that are going to benefit, and I'm speaking specifically about China, unless you're looking to invest in these very specific sectors, it's actually quite difficult to move money out of China. Even though they have great spending power, there's a lot of money in China. But when it comes to moving it out to invest somewhere else, I found that that's been somewhat of a challenge for some persons or entities. And I know this might be a deeper, separate topic, but is there something that you can say to that on a very surface level?
Well, obviously, if China has been opening and closing the tap on the outbound investment, whereby they were considered such investment to be too voluptuous to justify a big outflow of capital. So, for example, there was like a few years ago, there was the trend of Chinese investments into sectors like media, entertainment, sports, and those sectors which are were not considered so valuable for the Chinese economy itself. And this is what happened. They decided to close the tap and to make it more strict regulation for this kind of investment. But if you look at other type of investment, for example, in strategic sectors like technology, healthcare, environment, and so on, this investment has actually been encouraged. So it really depends on what type of investment you're looking at. And obviously, there's a number of ways to structure your investment through offshore jurisdiction like Hong Kong or Singapore, for example. But if you have like a real investment business case, which in a sector which is considered beneficial for the Chinese economy itself, I don't see particularly problem for an Asian company to go overseas.
Perfect.
It really depends on the way you structure it. Yeah, and which kind of investment you're targeting.
Yeah, thank you very much for that more thorough response than I was expecting. I think that all of this information is so useful to the people that are watching and those who are going to watch later. And I like to ask one very personal question to all the people that I get to host. And so on a more personal level, what resource, book, podcast, course, online course, even if it is, can you recommend to people that either you've done something that's really influenced your knowledge in this topic specifically, if you can, or anything that you can recommend to people wanting to learn more about this issue of expanding to the European Union?
In terms of a podcast or I think that I'm not aware of specific providers of how to invest in Europe or what you should be aware of. But again, obviously,
any news source that you know, something that you check on the daily just to keep up to date, or a book that has made a, you know, an impact on you with regard to doing business in Europe or anything like that, I think people would really appreciate that.
well, normally in terms of the investments and what you should be aware of, obviously the big professional advisor are the most reliable one. And there's online, there's a number of newsletters from the big four, from, for example, KPMG, Deloitte, or PwC, or also the big law firm, right? Again, Europe is European Union is made of 27 member states. So normally all these big fours or big law firms and consultancy company are pretty much in the most important of these 27 member states. The biggest economies are France, Germany, Spain, Italy. These are the biggest economy, and there's really online. There's a number of material and sources that you can find about this topic. But again, it's very important to know, if you want to invest in Europe, which country you will be starting to set up your operations. And or if you want to set up, for example, an online business, like an e-commerce business, also you would need to have a server back in Europe, and then you will be aware of the GDPR, which is the data privacy law you need to comply with if you are targeting European consumers. But again, there's a lot of information online you can find, but ultimately, if you really decide to expand in Europe, the best things to do is to seek the advice of a professional advisor as to any step moving forward. This is very important.
Got it. And we have another question from Joshua Lim. He's asking, what are some cultural differences one should be aware of when negotiating a deal? What is the best thing to know to prevent a misunderstanding?
Very, very difficult question, actually. I think the European people are very, very accustomed and very used to negotiate deal with foreign investors. In terms of professional, my professional advice is always be very clear at the outset as to what is your intended goal and target, what you are trying to achieve. For example, if you are looking to set up a joint venture with an European-based company or business partner, it's very clear that you are straight, honest, and then straightforward at the beginning as to what are your commercial goals and commercial targets, what you want to achieve. In terms of culture, it is very, very welcome that parties, after, for example, a friendly consultation as to whether they have a business case, then each of them have their own professional advisor, for example, for preparing all the contracts, or to be advised separately, so that there is no misunderstanding as to whether, for example, the Asian partner could claim that it's been lured or it's been misled in respect of certain requirements that needs to be carried out. So as long as you have, again, a business case and you are both, you and your partner, European partner, both satisfied that you guys have a business case moving forward to your business in Europe, after that, you should proceed and seek separate advice from a professional as to what are the legal steps to implement your joint venture, your business into Europe. So I think that definitely there isn't one professional advisor that should advising both the parties, and each one need to have his own consultant, because otherwise there could be like a lot of misunderstanding, yes, a conflict, and then eventually you could, because you are here and the professional advisor normally based in Europe, you could be complain as that you are not properly looked after.
I see. And we just got another question from Marika Nani, and she asks, for a skincare brand wanting to enter Europe, what regulations do we need to be aware of? Cosmetics, FDA, license to export, etc.
Yes, again, which country are you starting from? Because every country has got its own regulation to sell this product. It's there isn't a European regulation in respect of cosmetics, but obviously there will be a European directive as to what minimum standard a product needs to comply in order to be marketed and distributed in Europe. Again, you need to be aware that if you want to start distributing this kind of products in Europe, you will probably have your own distributor, or you will do it yourself. This different business model. If you have your own distributor based in a country, make sure that the distributor is of a reputable background. So you want to actually appoint and engage a professional distributor who is already aware, who is already active in that sector. But again, the distribution will start from one country and can circulate to all the other member states. So there will be like the minimum requirement that need to be met. And then obviously this is not the specific place to talk about legislation for importing cosmetics. But again, if you start from one country, there will be the national system that needs to be complied with. But I'm very happy to talk through more with the person who. Please feel free to reach out to me, and then I will be very happy to give you a little bit more advice on this.
She says thank you. And
Pleasure.
with that, I have no further questions. I think we've addressed all the questions on my roster, as well as the ones that our viewers have. So if you have no further comments, or if you want to close with something, I think that this is it. And thank you so much for doing this with us.
My pleasure. Feel free to share my contact with your participants, and feel free to email me or reach me even through your organization. I'm very happy to give you any further advice moving forward to your businesses.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me, and have a good weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye-bye.